The American Railroad Series, Season 1, Episode 4. Dan, Daryl, Ed, Ted, and Rob, the first 5 railroad engines. Once upon a time, on the next following months, on September 1st, 1972, Daryl, a Seaboard Coastline Railroad EMD E8 locomotive number 3051, has been sitting on the tunnel for weeks now. Now, other friends who pass will likely feel awkward about him. "Hello," Ed said. "Ha ha," Dan said. At the time, Daryl remained in the tunnel for a while after a railroad controller abandoned him. It just felt like there was no rain in Miami. Most railroads in the East suffered financially because of poor regulations, a bad economy, rough track conditions, and more. Also, many railroads in the country continued to struggle, but those that were strong enough kept increasing profitability. Meanwhile, Dan is pulling the Silver Star Express train to the final stop, Miami. He was proud of the railroad controller for seeing him go fast like this. "Whoop, whoop, whoop, faster, faster, faster," he said. The coaches sound like they are wiggled and bumpy, as passengers had no problem with him. As he sees the tunnel where Daryl is all alone, he decides to whoop at him until the engine breaks down. The train immediately stops near the tunnel, slow to complete. Dan was unhappy, but his railroad engineer said that a prime mover had burst and no longer moved fast. Now Dan feels more angry as other passengers complain to the railroad controller, Theodore. Theodore is a male bottlenose dolphin here in Miami. Dan point Daryl seen smiling at him. "Who?" Theodore said he told all passengers to wait for a while, so Theodore asked to send another engine. Dan begins to move to the siding where the tunnels were blocked as Daryl remains. Meanwhile, another engine is here, and this is Ted. Ted, an EMD F7A locomotive number 305, arrived at the scene. This engine was also built in 1951 by the Atlantic Coast Line Railroad. Alright, this was the last engine left in this fleet because Ed was on a freight job in southern Dade County. Well, we will see him on the heavy coaches, Dan said. The crew is coupled to Ted, and the crew will be set as Theodore watches. I never pull, Ted said. Here we go, Ted said. Sorry, Dan said. He's too weak to pull the express train, he told Ted. So, Ted just gave up and needs help. Meanwhile, Daryl was seen waiting. Theodore asked him, "Are you pulling this train?" he said. Daryl said yes. The crew was powering up the engine and ready to pull. He is on the turntable and sees Rob, an EMD F3A locomotive number 4029, rush to help. Daryl arrived and was coupled onto Rob and Ted on the express train. All three watch at Ed, an EMD GP7 locomotive number 836, coupling to Dan to head to the repair shop. Finally, 3 engines pull. Whoop, pull hard, 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 whoop, pull hard. Hee hee, we done it, hurrah, we done it, hee hee, we done it, hurrah, we done it, hee hee, we done it, hurrah, we done it. Everybody was finally happy to return home, and the others standing by were quickly chasing them to see how fast the 3 engines were. One of the passengers who forgets is another female bottlenose dolphin with a blue hat, who watches and rushes to Theodore. Well, this female bottlenose dolphin from Mexico was actually Theodore's mother in Miami. She is known in our county and will help Theodore on the railroad. Now, as we see this train, watch till the end when the train arrives at the Miami station. Yippee, we made it home. Thank you all. People were glad to thank Daryl and friends for this rescue train. People gave him a nice spare, took photos, and tagged him, giving hope. That Theodore's mother sees Theodore and asks, "How did you feel?" "I'm okay. I've been working on the railroad. We can afford for our county to keep investing in the railroad company," Theodore said. Now moving on. Here is the map that shows why railroads in Dade County exist. It's all started in Miami with the Florida East Coast Railway, in green, which built the first line in 1896, before the city was officially incorporated in 1896. The railroad extended south to southern Dade County, reaching Homestead and Florida City by 1903 and beginning the Overseas Railroad to Key West. The railway also expanded west to create the Little River Beltline branch line. From 1923 to 1925, a branch line was constructed along the Ludlam Trail and Miami Canal, with a yard near the airport. In 1927, the Seaboard Air Line Railroad, a competing line in blue, built the Miami Main Line and Downtown Spur Line and collaborated with the Florida East Coast Railway to create the Oleander Junction. The Homestead branch line, used mainly for freight, was built along southern Dade County in 1927, with connections to cement quarries via 2 spur lines built in 1958. Today, most tracks in southern Dade County have been abandoned, with the Homestead branch line being the last active railroad in the area. Here we are, home on the latest November night. All 5 engines, Theodore and his mother in Miami. One day, all 5 engines were in grief over Daryl's actions and others too. So, what next for the railroad series? Maybe more trains or locomotives? Theodore will find out soon. If I have to try for my friends, wish you mother? Theodore asks. Yes, I can feel you like home in Dade County. We hope a new journey for these locomotives in Miami. Well done, hard job for the community, his mother said. I love you, Theodore said. In the end, all 5 engines were at home, and they can all work tomorrow, way before Labor Day. Then, they have a nice party on Labor Day weekend when the work is done, and all 5 engines can help if needed. Theodore will wish his mother a good Labor Day, which all workers will continue to celebrate on this holiday. Well, say good night to the first 5 engines in Miami. And this is the end of the story. Have a good night, everyone.